The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Pat Scott. Hi, Pat.
Hello there.
And Father Andrew Kinstetter. Hello, Father Andrew.
Howdy, howdy.
So I want to start off today with some more listener feedback. We've been getting great listener feedback. I love to get emails and messages from listeners, and so we can bring them up in the show. And this one came on our discussion last time, I think it was, where we were talking about the Apple's announcements at WWDC and the improvements to maps and how they have the EV routing for electric vehicles in the maps, and they'll tell you where the charging stations is for your particular model of car. And we thought, wow, we wish they would do that for gas stations. And so Melanie wrote in, not my wife Melanie, but another Melanie, wrote in with this email. She says, I'm listening to the episode, and you're hoping that it would tell you where on your route the gas station was. My car has a range feature, so I know how far I can go on a tank of gas. Using this information when I plan my route, I include the address of Costco gas stations that are close to the freeway. If I was going to need gas that day, I'd put in the address of the gas station I want to stop at so that my mapping app would take me there. It worked really well. For areas that didn't have Costco, I had to rely on spotting a gas station from the highway. This way takes a little planning ahead of time, but it's worked well for me when I've taken long trips. And that's great. And then I've done that too. When I've gone on long cross-country trips, I set in, look at Waze, kind of look at about how far I think I want to go before I'm going to need gas. I'll do a search in that area for a gas station and that sort of thing. And that's great. But what I was hoping for was something a little more automated that I don't have to do the planning, where I don't have to, figure out how far I'm going to be able to get. And because that doesn't take into account things like weather, if I run into unexpected traffic jams and that sort of stuff. So what I would like is a mapping solution that kind of keeps track of where my mileage is, where I'm going to be needing gas, and be constantly looking for gas stations in that area of where I'm going to be needing gas and directing me to it, just like it already does. Waze and the other ones will direct me around traffic jams and that sort of thing. So that is a good tip that to kind of plan ahead. But I'm kind of hoping these devices start to help us a little more by automating some more of that. Do either of you have a solution that you rely on for making sure you don't run out of gas?
I was just going to say it would be nice if they could anticipate when I'm going to want a snack or when I need to use the rest area. No, I pretty much just try to gauge it out. And I typically, if I'm going on a long trip, it's coupled with, a bathroom break or stopping to get lunch or something. So it'd be nice to be automated, but I don't know if I would use it a whole lot.
Well, and Waze does have the feature that it can show you gas stations coming up and the prices that are on there. That's one of the things you can see on the map when you're going through there. So that's what I use a lot, is that way I don't have to say, well, show me gas stations that are 5 miles away, but it's over on a side road 5 miles away. No, I don't want to do that. I want it on my route. And so that Waze does have that to help me.
Yeah, I've occasionally tried to rely on that, and I've had sometimes it works better than other ways. No pun intended. Other times. So but it generally works well. When we took our big cross country trip a couple years ago from Massachusetts down to Kentucky and back, we did a lot of that where we looked at Waze and what's coming up and kind of get to the point. It's a quarter tank. I think I should get some more gas and start looking. And that sort of thing. And that's fine. I'd like. I'm just thinking it works. I just was thinking what would be better, what would be nicer is if it could make that even more. Frankly, I'd like it if I could put in, I have 5 children, okay, and they're these ages, and so calculate how often I'm going to have to stop for the bathroom breaks and snacks. So
you're always going to run into, the mile beyond the exit for the rest areas is when they're going to need to stop.
And you need the route to the U-turn.
Next rest area, 50 miles. Daddy! Ah! Anyway, so that's great. Thank you, Melanie, for your email. So let's talk about today's topic. We're kind of diving into this big topic, and we're going to do a shallow dive this time, and we'll do deeper dives later on. But we're going to talk about smart homes, getting started with the smart home. And this is really, when I was a kid, the idea of an automated home was a pipe dream. It was science fiction. It was the Jetsons. It was this idea that you could talk to your home and have it do things automatically. It was just an amazing dream of mine to be able to have that. And so ever since it became possible a few years ago, I started transforming my home, much to my wife's chagrin. That it's gone better at some times than at others. I've had to, undo some things and fix them, and sometimes, So in other words, the smart home dream is kind of here now. We can start to transform our homes and make them more automated and more useful for us, and so. For a lot of people, it's becoming mainstream. So the question then becomes, like some people say, where do I start? I'm interested in doing a smart home things, but where do I start? What do you think? What's the first question? And maybe where's your experience with smart home stuff first? I should probably start with that. I've got pretty much, for me, nearly every light bulb in my house is now a smart bulb. Nearly, not all, but nearly. And I've got smart door lock and some smart cameras around the house and a smart doorbell and some things like that. So I'm pretty far down the road of this madness. How about you all?
Yeah, so I was going to say, first of all, have you ever seen the movie, I think it's Disney, but it's called Smart House from 1999?
No.
As a kid, I was fascinated with this movie. So you should look it up, Dom, and listeners, because it's sort of it's what would a smart house look like from the 1999 perspective. So the whole idea is that there's this smart home, and it's got all the things in their bedrooms. Their entire wall can be customizable to show a beach or to show a basketball court if you're a young kid or whatever you want. But it's run by an AI. And the dad, I can't remember if the wife had died or something, but he was interested in this other girl, and the teenage boy was feeling a little bit threatened by it, started tinkering with the AI, and the AI kind of takes over the house and becomes the super nanny and mom. And it's a really fun movie, but that is not what I want in a smart home. Fun movie, but it kind of starts to breach those topics, especially like if you were to have, say, an AI control your home, which I think would be very scary. But AIs are not sentient yet, so we're kind of safe there. But back to me, I have very limited experience in smart home technologies. Pretty much the only one that I've used, because I'm at a rectory, and it doesn't really make sense for me to customize things to that degree. But I do have a Phillips Hue light bulb in my office, which is really fun to play with because I can make it all sorts of different colors. I can automate it to go on at, when the office opens and off when the office closes. So that's kind of the main thing that I have experience with. But we also do have security cameras around the property and in the church, and I can access those from my smartphone. So that's kind of cool too. But that's kind of the extent of my experience. So,
Pat?
Well, having a daughter that is related to my husband, I have been very slow to get into the automated scene as well. And actually, the first thing that we had that was automated was installed about a year ago, and that was our new air conditioning unit. When they put in the thermostat, it is a smart thermostat and has Alexa on it. It's an Ecobee.
Okay.
Because that was the one that the city was giving us a rebate on. So we got that in first, and there was a lot a little bit of playing around with Alexa and the being able to come into the settings and see it from anywhere, wherever I am on the app is really nice. And then after several of my husband's brothers talked about their Ring doorbells and their smart doorbells and stuff, when we got back, Randy said, well, when are you going to put one in? I said, didn't think you wanted one. So we now have a Nest doorbell, the Hello.
Okay.
And other than that, we've got a couple of smart speakers, and that's really just for me to play with. But really, we don't have hardly any home automation.
Okay.
And because I just didn't want to intrude my own interests into running a household that somebody else wouldn't be happy with.
Right. Well, and for new listeners, just to remind you, Pat is my mother-in-law, and so Randy is my father-in-law. And when he comes to visit, it's always interesting to see him interacting with the things I've smartened around. And one of the things I've done with all of the light bulbs is every light bulb, all the regular light bulbs, I put an asterisk on that, but most of the light bulbs people generally use have smart switches with them. So we'll get into that in a bit. But so for people who don't want to talk to the lady in the box to turn lights on and off, you can just hit. There's a switch. So that's one of the important things that I kind of ran into. Decided early on I had to do. So the first thing to talk about, you mentioned a couple of different brand names, is when you're deciding what to do for a smart home, there are some basic questions. And the first one is what system do you want to be compatible with? And that's a problem because there are different systems. There's the Apple HomeKit standard, which works with your iPad and your HomePod and your iPhone with the Siri. None of them spoke up. That's good. I was waiting for that to start speaking up. This is going to be a tricky episode for me because I'm surrounded by devices waiting for the wake word. Then there's, or if you're an Android person, you might have a Google Home or other Google devices. If you have the lady in the can, the Amazon Echo devices, which I do have as well. That might be the compatibility with that might be important to you. There's also Samsung Smart Things and Zigbee and a couple others. But the nice thing is that several of these different devices out there are compatible across the different standards. So you can get smart home devices that'll work with HomeKit and Google and Amazon and Samsung, down the line. And in fact, I think I remember Apple mentioning at the WWDC last week that they're working with all these big vendors, like a dozen of them or more. There was this big slide with all these names on it to develop more standardization, more cross-compatibility, which really is good because as it stands now, when you're buying a device, you have to make sure that you pay attention to whether it works with your particular your system that you're working in, your ecosystem. But the nice thing is I've got Siri and Echo devices and I can control my things with them both. It's not perfect. Sometimes Echo will say, I don't recognize that device or it's not responding. So I have to turn to my phone and have it do it and vice versa. There's still some glitches in the system. So it's not perfect, but it's there. There's also, some devices that will bridge these, so for example, I have a Google Nest thermostat and it doesn't work with HomeKit, but there's a system called Homebridge. It's like a third party open source project, I think, that will connect my Nest to my iPhone device, my HomeKit device, my Siri or whatever. So there are some things like that. So those are like the initial questions is like, how do you want it to work with?
I got a just a generic question for you. We're kind of jumping into kind of the practical, the nitty gritty of this, but for someone who has like no idea what's going on, what can you do with a smart home? What I know, we can turn on and off lights, but what does it look like when you leave the house? Do you say, Mrs. Amazon, lock the house, and she locks the doors and turns off the lights, and so what are some benefits of all the smart devices?
That's a good point. I should back up on that, because those are some those are the more basic questions. Because right, so here's how I use it. One of the things we have is a smart lock, and we can. Before we had it, I always had to, make sure every night I'd go around and lock in the doors and make sure the doors locked. Now I can just look at my phone and press a button and say lock the doors. Like if it's not locked, lock it, and I can do that from bed or for wherever. So I don't have to worry about that. One of the things that the Echo device has is it's called Alexa Guard, and it will. I could say, "Hey, lady, I'm leaving." And if I say that, we'll say, okay, I'll guard the house for you. Now, it's not like sending robots around. What it's doing now is listening for sounds that sound like, that shouldn't be there.
Breaking
glass or that sort of thing. Right. So it can do that. Some of the other things, like I have something really geeky, which is whenever I turn on my mixer on my connected to my computer because I'm going to podcast, the computer detects it, runs an automation that turns on a light that's right outside my door to my office. It's with a hue bulb in it, and makes it red. And that's the signal to everyone, don't come in. That cost me like $50 to do. When I looked up, like, what is a real on-air light, a studio on-air, it's like $500. I'm like, I'll figure this out myself. Thank you for a lot less than that. One of the things, here's a practical Catholic thing we do. So every night, a whole family sits down in the living room and we say bedtime prayers. And so I start with, everyone's in the room, and I say, "Hey, lady, prayer time." And that turns off all of the lights in the house, all the hue bulbs, except in the living room, where it dims them down to half illumination, leaves the outside lights on, and then we say prayers, because we found early on the kids pray better when the lights are down and they can't see anything. The low lights calms the animals. So then when we're done, I say, "Hey, lady, bedtime," and that brings up some of the lights. Brings up the living room lights, turns on the bedroom lights to half illumination, turns on my office light, that sort of thing. So it's very handy that way. I think I could automate the door locks, but I try to keep the door locks off of voice control. I don't want someone walking up to an open window and yelling, "Hey, lady, open the front door." Mm-hmm. That's a bad. that's a little hole in the system, that security hole. So there's that, and then of course with cameras and that sort of thing. Like I have the Amazon Ring doorbell and cameras, security cameras, and so it alerts me, when someone's at the front. Especially nowadays, when someone rings the doorbell, I'm not opening the door until I know who's there and talk to them first, which is great. So the other ones, Google Nest does that, and those other systems. So, but with the cameras, if I'm not home and I get a notification on my phone that someone's moving around in my backyard, I can bring up the camera and see who's out there. I wish the Ring was a little better because it detects squirrels and skunks and whatnot a little too often, or a bush waving in the wind is one that I kind of wish they would get those machine learning going a little better than they have. It's better than it was, but they get a little ways to go to make it perfect. So those are some of the things I do with the smart home devices. I've got also the thermostat is a nice one where it's automatically goes up and down during the day, and if it doesn't detect movement in the house, it turns it, like if it's in the summer, it turns the AC off, and keeps it relatively doesn't let it get too high. But then when, like, say we're at my brother's house for a 4th of July party, which we're not doing this year because you can't see people. COVID. But if we were doing that, just as we're about to leave, I would open up my phone, open up the app, and set the AC, turn the AC back on, so the house is not like broiling hot when we get back. It'll be cool by the time we get home. So those are a few of the things that we can do.
Sounds like it'd be a great thing for people who are, if you leave the house and are, either on vacation or at the office, and you don't remember if you locked the door, or you can easily get on your app and see, and you can connect to whatever's going on back home, or if you check on Spot.
Yep. Or if you need to let someone in the house to you've got an emergency at home, you need to let someone get in the house. You can open the door for them, that sort of thing. Yes. Yep. That's true. So, and that kind of brings up what kinds of smart home products there are. So we mentioned lights. That's a very common. So light bulbs, but there are also like light fixtures that you can get. So you can get a fixture that's smart instead of the bulb itself. I kind of like the bulb a little bit more than the fixture because that is a little more flexible. And like the Hue bulbs, they come in both color, multicolor. Those are a little more expensive, or you could just get white bulbs. And most of mine are just white bulbs. I don't necessarily need colored bulbs everywhere, but the multicolor one for my I'm on the air light is perfect for that. I do want to come up with a Star Trek klaxon, like the red alert thing, like and blink. That would be my the thing.
You might find the front door locked when you leave and you come back.
Yes, you're not allowed in until you remove these things.
It does remind me of the Star Trek Picard episode where at Riker's cabin, where he says shields up and like the whole house just goes into lockdown mode.
Oh man, that would be awesome if I could just say, a lady shields up and the whole house locks down. That Star Trek nerd's dream.
Every Trekkie's dream.
Engage. Then so lights, light bulbs, also, and this is a little thing we could talk about at some point. I don't know if we'll be able to get to it in this episode, but we could also talk about the relative advantages of light bulbs versus light switches. Some people prefer switches, so replacing the switch in the wall with a smart switch that's remote controlled and leaving regular bulbs in the outlets, because that way it's easier for the non-geeks. To them it's just still a switch on the wall. And you don't have to you have to replace bulbs every once in a while, whereas you don't have to replace switches. So there's that, but there's a little more flexibility with bulbs, and bulbs are good for people like you were saying for yourself, Father. You don't own your home, you live in a rectory, but a bulb is just a bulb. You just put it in. So if you're a renter or someone somewhat transient, you can put bulbs in and control those remotely as you wish. One of the things I do, another example of smart home things I do, is I have a fan. My wife and I prefer to have a fan blowing when we're sleeping, and I have that on a smart outlet, it plugs into the outlet, and it comes on at a particular time at night, just as we're getting ready for bed, and then in the morning it turns. My wife told me have it turn off at the time that I want to get up. Like whatever the day is in that time she wants to get up, because once it goes off, she can't stay there very long. Like without the fan on, she's not going to sleep. So it's like a second alarm for her to kind of prompt her to get out of bed. So that's another way we use it. Lights. There's the doorbell, as I mentioned. There's cameras, remote cameras. There's door locks. Mentioned those, including garage door openers. I don't have a garage, so I don't have a remote garage door opener. But again, like garage door openers have been around for decades. Those were really like some of the first quote unquote smart home technology. But they've gotten even smarter and more connected to all of this, which is really nice. Thermostats, so control your heating or cooling. The smoke detectors. So I think really right now, as far as I know, unless you guys know of other ones, the Google Nest Protect are really the only smart smoke detectors out there. Are there others? Do you know of? Have you heard of?
I'm not aware of any.
Yeah. I mean, a Kid and some of these other big names in smoke detecting. I'd be surprised if they didn't have something out there. But the Nest Protect smoke detectors work alongside the thermostat, so those, and they work pretty well. I just love not having to climb up on a chair every time I'm cooking and burn something. To have to turn the darn thing off, I can just hit it on the app. Like, no, I'm cooking. Stop. Then I mentioned electrical outlets, so you can have replacement outlets. So you pull you can pull the outlet out of the wall and replace it, and have something like that. Or you can have something that plugs into it, like a smart switch sort of thing that you can plug in. And then speakers, mentioned the HomePod and the Echo and the Google Home and those sorts of things those are also smart. There are smart TVs that work with all this. Sometimes, like I think there's a brand of smart TV that works with one of the doorbells, and I can't remember which ones it is. I think it might be Google and Samsung or something along those lines. But where if someone comes to your door, rings the doorbell, it pops up the on the screen the image from your doorbell. And Apple has got that coming soon for their Apple TV and their HomeKit compatible doorbell. So that's really nice. And then there are kitchen appliances too, right, Father? You've got something along those lines, right?
No.
I thought you had like a smart Instant Pot.
Well, I talked about that a number of episodes ago that I wanted to get the Wi-Fi Instant Pot, but the Walmart that I went to was out of stock, so mine is not the when this one goes bad, the next one I get is going to be R2D2 and smart. But yeah, their Instant Pots, you can control it from your app. I know that there's other things out there too. I've seen the previews for the smart fridges that have like the camera inside that you can, access if you're at the grocery store to check if you need milk and eggs and, that kind of thing. Or ovens, I think, are going that way too. And
when screens in the kitchen to do cooking, to pull up your recipes and stuff. We've had make do ways to do that before, but I think that there's refrigerators that have a smart panel or something like that, as well as I think maybe one of the Echo Shows or one of those has that capability.
Yeah, the Echo Show definitely. I think you can pull up videos and you can. I was just home this past week, and one of the super handy things to do for it was just to ask her to set a timer while you're I've got this in the oven. Set a timer for 20 minutes, and you just shout it out rather than having to punch it into the oven.
My kids use the Echo timers all the time. They've become very used to the technology, although it can be tricky when they're still young and they have a bit of a speech impediment sort of thing. Yeah. But like one of our rules is you have to, before you can have any screen time, you have to go outside for 30 minutes. It's one of we have various rules around screen time, and so. My son will run in. He'll say, "Echo, set a 30-minute outdoors timer," and then he'll run outside. And then every so often he'll come back in. How much time on the outdoor timer? 29 minutes. So that actually works for the kids. The kids are really taking to it, and because it's in our kitchen, which is next to our dining room. We'll have conversations at dinner, and stuff will come up and. Hey, how far away is the sun? I'll yell it out, and we'll get an answer. What were we talking about? Are there isotopes of gold? That was the one that came up the other day at dinner. It's like having Jimmy Akin at dinner with you every night, frankly. That's kind of what it is. Jimmy knows a little bit of everything. So yes, the smart speakers are a great, and having the screen ones, like the Echo Show, I've got one on my desk. But we've got the Lady in the Can in the kitchen, and I like the screen one because it gives those extra visual cues that you don't get without a screen. So I like that.
And if you're interested, one of those also is a phenomenal digital picture frame. So even if you don't really need it for the smart aspect, that's the reason why I got it for my parents. But then, of course, they use it for so much more. But it. Upload pictures to it. If you play music through the Amazon Music service, it'll actually show the lyrics, so you can do your own version of
karaoke.
Cool. Sing and dance in the kitchen while you're cooking. So
that'll take some of the calories off.
There you go. We even mentioned a few weeks ago how you can buy a pair of the Echo Shows and set one up remotely, so that, like, for your parents, like one guy sent one to his mom in a nursing home, and she can't go see her because of COVID. So this is he can just drop in. She doesn't even have to know how to answer it. He is able to drop in. They all come with physical shutters, so you can shut the camera if you don't want someone just dropping in and seeing you unawares. But it would be nice, like, for if you have an elderly parent not necessarily a nursing home, but an older parent or something, and just putting it in the kitchen, and while you're having dinner, you can just drop in and say hi and chat and see the kids and all that sort of stuff. That's one of the benefits of that as well. Other kitchen sorts of things. I've got a smart sous vide device. Sous vide is the device that cooks food like in a vacuum sealed bag in hot water.
Okay.
And it's a French.
It's a immersion
cooker.
Yes.
Yes. So it'll bring a food, like it'll bring the steak up to the perfect temp, and it will hold it there nearly forever. Yep. And then when you're ready, you take it out and then throw it on a griddle, and you cook it really quick, and it's perfectly done. Anyway, there are. I have a smart device controlled sous vide cooker, so I can control it. I could set it, forget it. That sounds like an infomercial. And then go in the other room, and it will beep at me like, "Hey, it's at the next stage," and I can go, "Oh, yes," or I can adjust it or whatever. Same thing with grills. There's Weber has the iGrill thermometer. It's a Bluetooth Wi-Fi connected thermometer thing where if I'm making a brisket, hey, it's at the perfect temp, Or now, what is it? Is it Traeger has like the pellet? It's $1,000 pellet grill. It's like a smoker. It is amazing. This thing, and again, remote control. You just turn it on, you adjust it. It's almost too easy, frankly. That's my thing. This should be a little bit of work.
You can't work up a good sweat, for the beer with that.
Exactly. I don't have an excuse to stand out there anymore, poking at it. One thing I'd mention with a smart appliances is, because appliances usually last a long time, I'm really hesitant to get one that has like a tablet built in or that sort of thing, because the technology, the operating systems, all that sort of stuff advances so quickly. And that's something we need to kind of briefly mention, is also security updates. You've got to be sure that you can update the security on these on a regular, ongoing basis. I don't want my fridge to be a security hole. Like, what do we got to buy a new fridge now? I'm a little leery of those just yet, and we'll see how that goes.
It kind of reminds me of the navigation systems in cars were so cool when they first came out, and now pretty quickly they became obsolete because Google's Maps and Waze and everything has the up-to-date stuff, and they're stuck back 2 years before.
Oh yeah,
and unless they could get it, it just seems like it's embedded, so it's not easily replaceable. Unless they made it modular, and then you could just do something like that.
But it's so much better for them to just, we're already carrying a computer around our pocket that can do this. It's so much better for them to just plug into what we've got, they don't have to worry about it.
But that's what I'm saying, so embedding screens and things like that and some of these things I don't think is a good idea, because, as you say, that technology gets outdated fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a client that had a really nice home security system, and I had to come because basically somebody had hacked into it, that he didn't have a password that was different than the default. So that's the big security issues that a lot of devices don't have good control of yet.
Well, and we should talk a little bit about this, and we'll dive back into this topic again later and come back to it. But one of the things to be wary of is third-party devices. Only go for the name brands. I know they're more expensive, but they're more expensive for a reason, kind of like if you get Belkin, the Belkin Wemo, or you get Phillips, but then there are all these little third-party bulbs and cameras, especially cameras. Don't buy knockoff
cheap ones,
cheap cameras. Because their security is terrible, and you get people spying on you in your own home. I mean, that would be. I don't put cameras in the home anyway. I do for when we're away. If we're on vacation, I have cameras that I set up. Most of my cameras are all pointed outside, but even then, I have name brand cameras that I set up inside. Because it's too easy. It's in fact, it's been shown that some of these third-party cameras have spyware in them and the back doors, and it's really bad. Yeah,
the nanny cams that have gotten hacked into and things like that. You don't want to risk that. Just stay with the better brand, the more expensive ones.
That's terrifying, especially if you have a nanny cam with a young kid.
Right.
To have someone either spying or the ones that you can actually speak through that. Oh.
Yeah. HomeKit compatible devices are supposed to have really good security. That's one of Apple's requirements to be HomeKit certified. But even then, if you buy a device that has a password, any kind of password system, change it. Never stay with the default. Never leave the username as admin. Never leave the password as well, because the fact is everyone knows what the default password is. There is a website with that password sitting on it, waiting for someone to they're going to scan all the IP addresses, and they'll find that camera, and they'll hack into it. So yes, that same thing with doorbells. Go with a name brand doorbell. Mine is Yale. Yale is a big name in not doorbell. Door lock. Yale is a big name in door locks for decades. They've been around for a century, so they know what they're talking about. In fact, they were bought by August, which is owned by Amazon. So actually, Yale is part of Amazon now, which is interesting. So security is an important consideration. Try to stick to the name brands. We'll come back to that. When we come back to this topic, there's so much more to talk about here in all of these different parts of this conversation. We're only just scratching the surface, but it's a way to get started. And if you, listener, have any questions that we didn't cover, if you have any concerns that you'd like us to when we come back to this topic, please let us know. Write in and send us an email to technology@sqpn.com and let us know what are your questions, what are your concerns. If you have any, any advice on what we're doing, we'd love to address those in the future.
Yeah, so, I guess, for people who are saying, well, where would I get started? What's the easiest way to get started? Probably lights is probably the easiest way, and then doorbell next, maybe. Yes. Because that's a lot less outlay than you talking about for a heating system that has the thermostat or whatever.
Right. Yeah. A light bulb, if it gets hacked, is way less of an issue than if a camera gets hacked. Nobody's going to hack a light bulb. I mean, I guess they could, but
what are they going to do? Like annoy you by blinking it on and off?
Right.
Well, or burn it out. That would be the other thing that I think there was a concern about overheating them and having a problem with that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and I guess I would just encourage people to be prudent, be skeptical,
cautious,
and do your research, or talk to someone who knows. Don't do this on your own if you're unsure of things. If you've got a family member who is super into it, get second, third opinions on everything, and just be prudent and safe about it.
And get some good websites. The wirecutter.com is a good website for, go there and look up their smart home recommendations. They're always good. I almost always buy whatever they recommend for. They're like the modern Consumer Reports.
Tom's Hardware is usually really good too.
Oh, that's another good one.
That's another one that I've liked to for reviews on hardware.
Yeah,
and this type of thing.
Definitely. Those are two good resources. All right, excellent. So we'll be back to talk about smart homes in the future, but now we're going to switch over to talking about some headlines that are out there. The first headline I wanted to mention is the Facebook says that they're going to let users turn off some political ads, to which I say, bravo, Facebook. That would be very nice because I don't necessarily want to see them all the time. Now, it's not quite as good as turning everything off, no political ads at all. But if you see an ad that you don't like, that's offensive, you can indicate, don't show this to me anymore. What do you think of this?
It's about time.
Yeah.
It's really just difficult to navigate through Facebook with all of the stuff that's popping up that makes people irate, and all that type of thing. So, yes, I would say if we can get a way to tone down the political thing and leave Facebook more for the social aspect of things, that would be much better.
Yeah. Frankly, I don't see many ads at all when I'm using Facebook on my computer versus my phone or my iPad, because I've mentioned before a browser extension called Fluff Busting Purity, or FB Purity, so it's supposed to be Facebook Purity. But what it does is it will alter your Facebook experience in a number of different ways. But one of the things it can do is remove ads. So I don't see the ads on Facebook because they're just so. Honestly, they're really obnoxious. I don't mind decent ads, but they are obnoxious to the point of making it almost unusable sometimes. So, but it doesn't work on mobile, so I still have to see them there. But But at least,
well, and you're accepting yourself from being part of the general public to be able to speak to these things, Tom.
that's right. Right. I need to be able to suffer what everyone else suffers.
Yeah, suffer along with us.
I keep thinking, I wish things could go back to when Facebook kind of started, where it was more about the social aspect and less about
Commercial.
even my circle of people that I'm friends with, getting on their soapbox and whether it's political or whether it's whatever it is, it's
hiring.
Can I just see pictures of your puppy? Like, that's kind of all I want to know.
Or what movies you've seen recently, or the music that you like, or the poetry that's out there. Yeah, those are the things I want to see.
Facebook has become just like a source of stress.
Yes. Of course, now part of it is the friends you cultivate. Yep. So sometimes you have to reach out a little bit and find the ones that aren't connecting with you on the level you want to connect with.
Well, yeah, and that's a little bit more difficult as a priest because so many people know me and want to be friends, and so I do accept a broad number of people, whether I'm super close to them or not. So
yeah,
right.
I'm out in kind of deep water there.
Yeah, that's true. That's why there's called unfollow. You can still be their friend, but you unfollow.
I have done that. Yep.
Oh, I've also the 30-day snooze has gotten a lot of work for me.
Oh, that's
lately.
Nice. Yes. I'd forgotten about that one.
Well, that's the nice thing with the FB Purity plugin is that it also lets me mark certain keywords. Don't show me anything that contains these keywords, and you can guess the keywords that I've got active at the moment. Certain politicians,
at least a few of them. Yeah.
Certain medical conditions. So let's move on to the next headline, which is this is kind of fun. A movie called Unsubscribe, the $0 budget movie. So it had a budget of $0 that topped the U.S. box office. And so what happened to these couple of guys who because all the theaters are closed, or most of them are closed, there's very few that are open. They kind of figured out a way to game the system to make a movie that would be number one at the box office in the United States.
Because there's nothing else on there.
Right. So what they did was they shot Unsubscribe. It's a 29-minute horror movie shot entirely on Zoom with their friends. And they generated $25,000 in ticket sales on June 10th by getting a theater to agree to show it and then buying out the theater, all the tickets, but using a loophole that allows them to take all the money in themselves. In other words, they were buying the tickets from themselves, so therefore they didn't have to put out any money for it. But they were able to claim that they had $25,000 in ticket sales in one day, and thus they became the number one movie in America. I thought that was very clever. Only in the age of YouTube and Facebook and Zoom and whatnot. So I wonder if it's any good.
I don't know. I haven't watched it. No, I didn't get it.
I think I read that it was on Vimeo, so I think listeners could go check it out if they wanted to. I'm not a big horror fan, so
yeah. There's some actual like actors in it, like people who've been in things, not just so they're pals. So that should be pretty funny.
But it does just remind me of the ingenuity of people, especially in these times, like the Parks and Rec Zoom, special episode.
Yes.
Or John, and I'm blanking on his last name.
Krasinski.
Yes, some good news.
Stuff,
so there's some really cool ingenuity out there in these crazy times.
I just love they did it.
I saw a David Tennant thing where basically it was like about some actors that were getting ready to do a play, and of course everything came down and canceled. So they decide to practice or rehearse over Zoom. And so there's about 6 episodes of this where they're getting together and trying to do this, and it is a perfect commentary on how things are going right now. But it was awesome. You could only see it on BBC. So I used my ExpressVPN a little bit to let myself be in London for the day.
So let's move on to this next story, which is very interesting. So with the next version of iOS 14 coming out for iPhones, A lot of developers and people who love to be on the bleeding edge have installed it on their phones. And there's some new privacy features that Apple has put in, and it's been exposing some very interesting bad behavior on the part of some apps, particularly TikTok. So what they've found is, so there's this new feature where every time an app surreptitiously copies what's in your pasteboard. So when you copy and paste, it copies and saves it the phone will copy whatever it is you're copying and save it in a place called the pasteboard, and it will usually, whatever you've copied stays there until you've copied over it the next time or restarted the phone or whatnot. And so some of these apps were copying from the pasteboard, sucking down from the pasteboard on their own, whatever happened to be there, sometimes like 10, 20, 30 times a minute. Like someone said, it was doing it every 1 to 3 keystrokes of every time they.
Wow.
Every
I watched
3 keystrokes.
one of the videos of it, and it just kind of kept popping up over the screen with the notification.
And if whatever you have on your pasteboard is now in their hands, whether it's a password, a phone number, other confidential information, and it turns out they're not alone. There's 54 apps total found doing this so far. TikTok claims it was an overzealous anti-spamming feature in their app that they're now going to remove. We didn't realize it was doing this. The problem is that TikTok is a Chinese company, which that's fine. That's not necessarily a problem to be Chinese, but it's owned by some of the higher executives are members of the Chinese Communist Party. They're closely connected to the communist government. And there's a lot of concern that China, the Chinese government, Beijing, is using TikTok as a way to spy, and to the point where the Defense Department has told its employees that they cannot install TikTok on their phones, and even certain employees who are in certain classified positions, no one in their immediate family can install it on their phones, which is
wow.
kind of wild.
Yeah.
So I don't usually go in for the big conspiracy theory stuff, but this is a case where I'd say I wouldn't have TikTok on any of my devices. That's bad behavior. Of course, I have a link to another article, and I'll put in the show notes. That's not the only app that's doing this. So of the other apps, ABC News, Al Jazeera English, CBC News, CBS News, CNBC,
I hadn't heard those.
Fox News, New York Times, NPR, Russia Today, Reuters, The Economist, Huffington Post, Wall Street Journal, Vice News. Like, these are not fly-by-night Chinese government, whatever.
And they're not games. They're not entertainment things. They're news things. Yeah. That's scarier. Right.
There's a bunch of games as well, including Bejeweled, Fruit Ninja, which I used to love. Fruit Ninja, PUBG Mobile. PUBG is a Fortnite competitor. Mm-hmm. That's a big one. Plants vs. Zombies Heroes, and Weibo and Viber, which are both big outside the U.S., but and then a whole bunch of other ones. Bed Bath & Beyond, AccuWeather. Overstock.
And so I could understand if they said if you might want to cut and paste within that app, they might have to be able to get to the clipboard.
Right.
But what you're saying is it's gone way beyond that. Oh, that's so scary.
Right. And so they're pasting, like if you copy something out of your messages, then you go into, say, Overstock, and then you'll see a message, Overstock has pasted from messages. Mm-hmm. So, I would check out the list that we'll put in the show notes, and you need to make a decision about whether you want to have these apps on your devices. I don't have any of these apps on my devices at this point. Not until I'm sure that they've fixed it. Now that they've all been caught red-handed, I'm sure it will be quickly fixed. Although TikTok, despite having promised, still has not fixed it. So we'll see how that goes. They might be just trying to figure out how to hide it again. So
I'm not even interested in the whole premise of TikTok.
Oh, well, yeah, we're not at the right age. That's the problem.
Father, you're not. Father, you're starting to become an old man. You're no longer interested in the hot new thing.
Right.
It's hard to keep up, but
it seems to be a young kids entertainment platform mostly.
I've seen Snapchat.
I've seen some clever stuff there. I usually watch it when someone reposts it to Facebook or Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only ones I've seen.
There was a really fun one of a guy doing all the different Star Wars actor
imitations,
accents and voices.
Yes. Yeah,
I see them when they hit the main news streams.
That's right. That was a good one. Yeah, I'll wait for that. All right. So be safe out there, folks. Our next headline is Microsoft is permanently closing all of their physical retail stores, at which point all of the Apple people go, they're still open? No, just kidding.
It's like the Maytag repairmen. They probably didn't have a lot of people. I did send a couple of people over there, and they said the stores were never busy when they walked in.
No. Well, and I was surprised. They've been around since 2009 that they've had brick and mortar stores. They said the press release, of course, puts it that we're just reorienting or we're transforming our retail presence. Yeah, transforming as in removing it.
Well, and for a lot of the people I know, it wasn't just used for sales. It was basically they could take it in if they were having a Windows problem, and they actually had technical people there too.
Right. Their version of
so
the
that
Geniuses.
was where I thought that was the only thing I was sad about it. Is there's nobody I can send over for free help with Microsoft updates anymore.
Right. And that's, that would have been a great resource for that. But apparently they just, the COVID-19, like a lot of things, it killed the whole thing. And it was probably marginal to begin with. And now it just can't survive in the COVID-19 world. So it's too bad. It's too bad because more is, frankly, having more competition is better. I like having Microsoft out there prompting Apple, to be better at things and having a competitor retail store, although it really looked a lot like an Apple store.
And I never went to
hints?
one.
I've been to the one here in town. Yeah,
I've been to Apple stores, and I think most people are just more drawn to an Apple store because of its unique design and its its product. I mean, a Microsoft store, I don't know, it just is way less appealing.
There's a certain kind of experience at an Apple store that's different. The way the consumer experience is, but I don't want to get too Apple fanboy here, but
well, and I'll have to admit, Microsoft did sell other products. I mean, they would sell other laptops other than just their Surface laptops. So things that they would showcase really cool laptops or computers, from other companies too.
And I would say I'm a Microsoft fan too. Like I have their Xbox, and so I mean, like I would love it if they would stay around, but I never used them.
Right.
So as far as the retail
stores,
store,
but I will continue to use Microsoft products for sure, and of course Microsoft Office, and but all of those you can download, you can get tech support online. You don't necessarily need to go to a physical store for a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Right. Well, even machines these days, people aren't going into the stores; they're ordering them online.
Mm-hmm.
So our last headline for today is a neat little trick. I'm not sure Google's going to agree, but it's a way of getting around having all those ads play while you're watching YouTube videos. And the trick is in the URL. So in the address bar, when you load the video page, you just put an extra period after the .com in the YouTube link. So I guess so it's youtube.com/. Is that what it is? I think I didn't test it out.
Yeah, I tested it out and I thought, well, maybe, they're going to catch that fast, but it's just been several weeks since I've seen that article. I tried it today. It still works. And I started playing a video and, there are 2 ads. And so I went right back, put the period in, refreshed the page, and it went right into my dust session. So it was like, well, it's not exactly immoral to do it, but it is a little bit getting around the paying for ads. But if I use an ad blocker, it's doing the same thing. So it's just like an ad blocker for it.
It's a manual ad blocker. Yeah. I mean, I'm
sure they'll fix it.
Yeah. Well, it says that in addition to removing the pre-roll ads, which I always click to skip. I mean, I do. I mean, and because they give you the option to, so I always do. It also eliminates mid-roll ads, so ads that show up in the middle of videos, which, frankly, I find those more egregious. I'd rather have the ads like at the beginning or the ads at the end, but like ads that interrupt right in the middle, because it's usually right at the worst part. Like in TV, they build in that commercial break. It's not built into YouTube videos, and so someone's in the middle of a sentence or something. It's just really frustrating to get that. So,
for now, it works.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna every time I'm gonna bother to stop and rewrite the URL and put the extra dot in there, but I don't know if I get annoyed enough, I might. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so that's great. So let's move on to our picks of the week. Pat, what's your pick this week?
Well, I do a lot of work for people, and I do a lot of file copying and making sure that directories are moved from one place to another. And occasionally during that process, you have a hiccup, and now you're halfway through the process of copying. How do you know what made it and what didn't make it? So in both the Mac and in the PC side, I have programs that I use for that. I like the one for the PC better, but that's the way it is. For the PC, it's a product by a company called HeatSoft. And basically, what you do is you call it up, you point to the directories that you want to compare, and then you've got lots of options, but basically it compares all of the files in all of those directories for the presence or absence or the date and the time, and you can do lots of different combinations. But that way I can see, what things didn't make it. And then the next step is, okay, just finish synchronizing them. And then it only copies the ones that aren't there. And I use that to a lot to when I'm copying stuff from one place to another, or if I've got multiple versions of things that I want to get the latest versions over to that saved directory. So for the PC, it's called HeatSoft ADCS, and you can use it forever with just a simple thing of when it comes up, it asks you to punch 1, 2, or 3. And so if you got the right one, you're in. So you can use it forever with just a tiny bit of effort, but it's like $39, I think it is, for the paid version. On the Mac side, I had to do a little bit of investigation, and there were 2 products that came up. Beyond Compare is the one I'm using right now. There's another one called Delta Walker. They're just a little bit more cumbersome to use than the PC one, but the Beyond Compare is the closest, where I can call up 2 sets of folders and say, copy everything newer, or copy everything that's bigger, or just compare the ones, show me the ones that are the same file names in sizes on both sides. So it gives you a good way to manipulate large amounts of data without having to manually check, okay, that one made it, etc.
Excellent. Yeah, that's an important tool to have when you're moving a lot of data, to make sure it all got where it needed to go.
I have a lot of people that do a cut and paste, even on a Mac, to say, between this set of folders and their backup drive. Well, and then they come along next month. You don't want to copy them all again. You might just want to copy the ones that changed. Now, I know Carbon Copy Cloner has a way you can do some of that, but the idea being is that for most of my people, it's not really a full backup they're doing. They're just trying to keep their pictures upgraded over there.
There's an app that does that called Sync that's pretty good on the Mac. That's pretty well known. It may be a little heavier than what you're looking for, but it might be worth checking out too. It's pretty good for that too. Okay. Father Andrew, what's your pick this week?
So, as you might have guessed, I do a fair bit of listening to podcasts. And so my pick this week is a podcast player called Downcast. The only issue for this is it's kind of exclusive to the Mac iOS worlds, unfortunately for you Android listeners out there. But for those of you on iOS or Mac, there is the Apple Podcast app built in, which is a great, simple podcast player. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. But I like to use Downcast. Their little catchphrase is kind of funny. It's a very cool podcast player for iOS, Mac, Apple Watch, and CarPlay. But what makes it unique is that it really, I use it. There's two features of it that I really like. First is it's got an iCloud Sync. So if I'm listening to a certain episode on my phone and pause it and then pull it up on my computer, I can pick up right where I left off because it syncs between all the devices, which is really cool. But you can also do playlists. So I can group my podcasts in, like if I'm going to have a bunch of different geeky podcasts, I can group them into a playlist, and then it'll play them in order of their release date, but it'll jump from podcast to podcast automatically rather than me having to go to different podcasts and play the unlistened to episodes. So I really like it for all of these cool, fun podcasts that I listen to. Also, the only slight downside is that it does cost $3 for iOS and $5 for the Mac. So
very small downside.
Yeah. But for those of you who want a free version, I guess stick with Apple Podcasts, and I'm happy to pay a little extra for convenience.
I've used Downcast for years myself. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say what I've done is kind of like you, but I use Apple Podcasts for one kind of podcast, and I use Downcast, like maybe one is for my literary poetry, that type of thing. The other one's for my techie stuff, and another one for faith. So I've got Overcast, Downcast, and podcasts, and of course Spotify can do podcasts too.
That's right.
So
right.
You could have multiple ones just for those particular ones you want to listen to.
That's awesome.
My primary podcast player is Overcast. I use that for all my audio podcasts, but I use Downcast for video. Overcast doesn't do video, but I watch a few video podcasts, a lot from the Twit Network and screencastonline.com. So I watch theirs through Downcast, and that's the one while I'm brushing my teeth and shaving in the morning. I don't shave very much. I have a beard, but there is shaving involved. But while I'm brushing my teeth or whatever, I have a stand for my iPad that I watch my Twit Network videos.
I think the original reason why I went with Downcast is because at that point I was listening to, and I still do listen to, Kim Commando.
Yes.
But I think when I first started doing Downcast, it allows for you to input a username and password, and to listen to Kim's weekend show, you had to be a subscriber, and so I was able to put in my username and password through Downcast.
Cool.
And some of the other podcast players didn't allow for that, and I couldn't access Kim Commando's show. So
that's the nice thing with Downcast. Yeah. It does a lot of that stuff. Yep. Cool. Awesome. Good pick. So my pick is something I got for a review. I don't know that I would have picked this up myself, but it is kind of cool. And it is the JBL Boombox 2 waterproof portable Bluetooth speaker. This is a big music speaker. It connects to your phone or your iPad or whatever you got via Bluetooth, and it's like, I don't know if it doesn't really matter because the listeners can't see it, but I've got it behind me right now. And this thing is, I was kind of shocked when it came. I like to say, hey, do you want to review it? I'm like, sure, I'll review it. And it came, and it's huge. It's this big thing, and it gets loud. Like if you have a outdoor party, pool party, anything like that, this would be perfect for that. It's waterproof, so I don't know that I would throw it in the pool. I'm not sure that's made for that, but it'll get, if it gets splashed. IPX7 waterproof. I forget what that is, but I'm sure it's fine for being around a pool. It's got so much battery power that you can actually plug in your phone and recharge your phone from it, which is nice. And if you want, if you have multiple of them, I mean, it's a $450 portable speaker. I'm not sure who has multiples of these, but if you had multiple, you can connect them via Bluetooth. There's an app on your phone. You can connect them and make them a stereo pair, which is pretty wild. So it's fun. It's a lot of, it's definitely got a ton of bass. I was kind of, the kids and I were having a dance party in my office with some bass heavy music, and my wife was in the other room trying to figure out what the heck I was doing, blowing the things off
looking
the wall.
for earplugs, I guess.
Exactly. So a lot of fun. But so the JBL Boombox 2, it's a lot of fun. If you're in the market for such a thing, definitely check it out. All right. So I think that should do it for us. We want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Janelle K, Jerry Ann H, Katie T, Lisa S, and Joe S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. So what do you think of our discussion, or do you have any questions about smart home or any of the other things we talked about? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to technology@sqpn.com. And you'll find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. Be sure to write a review of the show in Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from. Your reviews are very important to us to help us to grow the show. Your reviews are the number one way that we get new listeners. That's how important they are. So we greatly appreciate it when you do that. And when you share the two number one ways that work together is when you also share the podcast with your friends. You let them know, hey, check out this great podcast I'm listening to. Both of those things are so very important to us, so we greatly appreciate it when you do that. Until next time, Father Andrew Kinstetter, thank you for joining me in sharing the secrets of technology.
Absolutely.
Pat Scott, thank you as well.
Good night.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.